Let me make sure before I start playing the wrong. All right, we're back again. This week is a conversation I'm really looking forward to. We've been going back and forth with Patrick for quite a while. Connecting sometimes can be a challenge from up north in Canada all the way to here, so I'm glad it's happened. But before we get too far into it, I'm Andrew.
I'm Jamie.
Becca.
I'm Nate.
And we have with us.
I'm Patrick Masterson.
All right.
Right on. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thank you. I just want to start off by saying I don't go around referring to myself as the educated climber.
Yeah.
That seems like a really pretentious douchebaggy thing to do.
Yeah,
it's just a brand. It's
Yeah.
about, it's about educating the younger generation. That's all it is. So
Sure.
Yeah, no, I never thought that that was the guy that you were, but I've always liked the idea of the educated climber because, as you're saying, it's about educating the next generation, and just the idea of, we're constantly learning. Well, we should be constantly learning. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, the industry's changing, and so you have to constantly be learning to kind of keep up with the latest and greatest of what the industry has to offer. And that's a great way to build a brand. Ever since I first saw I can't remember if it was on YouTube or Instagram, that's exactly what stood out to me, is like, oh, nice, somebody that's trying to inject some education into an industry. Here in the Pacific Northwest, well, it's probably all throughout our industry, people either get into it because they fail into it or they strive to be into it. There's the guys that get into it just because they needed a job hauling brush, and so that's what they do. And I like the people that strive to be into it because they're the ones educating themselves and others and open to learning. And that's where it's at.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. There's there's most guys that I've worked with, they don't put any effort into showing other people what they're doing, either because they don't fully understand it enough. Like they say, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't really understand it yourself, that idea. Or they're just wrapped up in what they're doing, and they would never think to take the time to like teach someone, show them, not just the how, but the why behind what they're doing. Right. So that's what I'm trying to do. It's an overwhelming and impossible task. All you can do is really work around the edges of a lot of topics. It's hard to, everything is so nuanced, and situational. The second that you start trying to say like, this is how you do this, everyone's up in arms, like, oh no, that's not how you do it, like, because there's 100 ways to do everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's difficult, but it's very challenging, but it's a lot of fun. And I started Educated Climber in 2016, so I've been going at it since then. I was aware, like, I didn't even get on Instagram until 2016 December, I think it was, and YouTube the same time. And I remember thinking at the time, like, I'm really late to the game. And now I look back and I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I started when I did.
Yeah, you're early on, I guess.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah, I guess.
Yeah. What was like the motivation to look at those platforms and start making your videos and stuff?
Well, I had it in my head from the very first year in the trade. I started my apprenticeship in 2008 at Norm's Tree Service, and I had it in my head right away that I was going to write a book. I don't know why. Like, at the time, there was only 2 books. There was The Fundamentals and Tree Climber's Companion by Jepson. Yeah. And it just seemed like there was not nearly, I mean, you could go into another trade, you can go into electrician and there's 1,000 books, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How is there only 2 books for tree work?
Yeah.
And that's really where it started. I wanted to write a book. And then at some point I realized like I could lock myself in a room and squirrel away at a book for 2 years and come out with a book, and no one knew who I was or anything. So I felt like I wouldn't sell the book anyways. Well, what's the point? So I figured, why don't I just go online and sort of put information out in a drip by drip basis, you know what I mean? And then sort of build a reputation just to prove to people that I wasn't a complete idiot, you know, with the eventual goal of writing a book. And that's where it is still, you know, is still my plan.
Nice.
So
have you started at all? Do you have a little stuff you've written down, or?
yeah, in 2013 is when I started just mapping like outlines of all point form stuff. I think I wrote like 35 pages of point form, which, you know, and I just kind of, I don't know, I work away at it little by little, but a big thing for me is illustration. Like I love Jeff Jepson's books. I don't know if you heard him on my podcast. I had him on, and what's that?
They're classics.
Oh, I love his style. I love the illustrations and the way the books are put together. And that was always, I would love to put together something like that with line drawings and illustrations like that, rather than photographs. You can do so much more with drawings. So that's a big hurdle for me. I still don't have a way to get that into play. So, but that's the goal. But along the way, I realized like a book can only go so far. You know, not realistically, not many people read books these days. People are more into video. So I realized I wasn't going to be able to make nearly as much progress as I would like to without a strong YouTube presence. So I put a lot of effort into that, and I started a podcast just for fun. And then, you know, social media in general, just again, just to not to make a name for myself per se, but just to show people that I wasn't a blowhard and just, you know, wasn't a snake oil salesman. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
sure.
It's easy to make. It's easy to go online and like make people think that you're something that you're not. And,
Sure.
and so there's a lot of mistrust, right?
Yeah.
It's probably the biggest problem with social media is, you know, that it gives people a conduit to be fake.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much good information on there, and if you know where to go and you know how to get it, it's so valuable. But it also, you know, it gives people the ability just to make you think whatever they, you know, it's it's a crazy world out there, and there's always someone to sell you something.
Exactly. So
how, when it comes to making those videos, how do you find the time to do all that editing? I mean, we've just kind of touched on kind of a little bit of content creation, and it is amazing how much work goes into the back end of a video or a podcast.
But not only that, filming while you're working.
Yeah.
Like I'll have my GoPro on site, my phone, tripods and stuff, but I just start going and totally forget about it. And I was like, dang, you know, I wish I would have set that up. But you
totally, like, even for me as a self-employed guy, even I don't like slowing down the job to get something on film. You know what I mean? And one of the biggest solution for me was just really focusing on helmet cam from the beginning, because helmet cam, like, it's always there. Mine's mounted on the side of my head. It's always there. If I'm doing something, I just one click, boom, I'm filming it. You know, it's the easiest thing for me. That's why most of my videos are helmet cam, because no one on the ground crew has any desire to help me with filming or anything. You know what I mean? So that's the only way I can get anything filmed, really, is helmet cam, which has a lot of issues. Like, I wish it wasn't helmet cam. You know what I mean? Helmet cam is, in most situations, is one of the least desirable views, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because it's unrelatable to most people. It's relatable to tree guys, tree climbers, you know what I mean, who are already familiar with being up in a tree and what it looks like from there. But anyone else in the world, they see a helmet cam and most of them are like, oh, it's shaky. It's like, it makes me feel like I'm on a roller coaster or something.
Yeah. A little Blair Witch-esque.
Exactly. And yeah, like the camera that I use, it doesn't even have stabilization. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of that. Yeah, definitely. In terms of editing, there's no easy way to do it. The thing that I've like, I really admire Buck and Billy Ray for years now. If you notice, I think the way that he does it is just very, very minimal editing, and that's why an average video for him is like 40 minutes long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas for the longest time, I really strived to make my videos as short as possible, because I'm really trying to respect the time that my audience has to watch them. It's only in the past few months that I've been starting to think about the other side of it. Like, if you're into a tree video, like, it doesn't matter if it's 4 minutes or 40 minutes. If it's good, you're gonna watch it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, I'll get into one of Jake Rogers' videos, and I'm just like, oh my God, I gotta watch this. I don't even have time to watch this, and I end up watching it. It's like, how the hell did I watch a 50-minute video of tree?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Traver Ahern will post unedited, full removals.
Yeah.
You can sit there and watch 3-4 hour video.
Yeah.
So. No, there's something to that though. I mean, when I listen to your podcast, they're just so, so well edited and put together. And our whole strategy is like, play a quick intro at the beginning and just go, like, almost no editing at all, because I wouldn't, our goal was to try to get one out every week. And there's no way you could do that if you put any more than like 2 or 3 edits per episode in.
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah. That was my goal for a long time. I was like, oh, I'd love to put out a podcast a week. And it was just, for me, like, for you guys, I don't know if do you have a guest on every show? Is that how you do it? Or are some shows are they just conversation?
Yeah, we break it down. So we have some that are like topic driven, we'll take groundwork and just break it down, or we'll take do a tree of the month. We try to get a tree every month and just do it all about Doug fir, or all about white oak, and then we'll do a guest, and then we'll just do kind of what we call a hangout or a random show, where we just get together and just start talking, and just whatever comes up comes out, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah. Have you been, I haven't listened to all your podcasts, obviously, but have you been able to keep up with the show a week?
We've done a show a week for, I think this is 43 now.
43.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
So we started, I think we had like 6 or 7 pre-recorded. So there's definitely been a few weeks it didn't work that we could just kind of plug them in. And then we've kind of had to do some shorter ones, which is just like get whatever out we can real quick. At least we got something out,
Our milestone's coming up, 1 year of a podcast every week. So that's kind of been the goal.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, part of how it came about is, we're in the middle of the pandemic, and we were all missing conferences and competitions and these ways we would get together with the arborist community and just, talk and hang out, and it just wasn't there. So we figured, what better time? A lot of us were on the same crew at that time, so we're all kind of part of that same bubble, and so let's just, if we're getting together anyways, let's hit record. And so, here we are.
For sure.
Yeah.
Are you guys making any money with the podcast? Like, do you have sponsorship or anything?
We haven't monetized it in any way. Our number one goal was just to kind of build community, kind of learn and teach, kind of share information, try to get a hold of experts, and then as they share their information, we're educating ourselves and anybody who's, decides they want to listen.
For sure.
And so we figured we'd do that. We've had some discussions about, doing it. We've, it's very possible we'll do like a t-shirt or something. It'd be nice to have just enough income to just kind of cover the bills. I don't think it's by any means anything anybody's going to get rich on anytime soon, but it's definitely a passion project more than anything.
Yeah. I don't necessarily want to go down this rabbit hole, but for me, like I juggle between YouTube and podcasting, and I make money on YouTube, right? So obviously I'm incentivized to focus a lot more on YouTube. I don't know if you guys have heard of the podcast called No Agenda.
No.
It's started by the guy who actually invented podcasting, Adam Curry.
Okay.
And the way that they just had their 14-year anniversary. They do 2 shows a week for 14 years.
Wow.
But they came up, their model for monetizing the podcast is called value for value, which is you just ask people who, if you're getting value from the show, either you can donate, he calls it time, talent, or treasure, right? And you can help us by working on content for the show, or just give us money, or like if you have certain skills or whatever. It's a really interesting way of supporting a show. So you just put it out there into the universe. If you're getting any value from this, and just give people an easy way to donate to the show. I just started doing this a few months ago, and I've already had, like, I don't know, 10 to 15 people donate something to the show. So
awesome.
That's a great, I love it.
Yeah, that's a whole rabbit hole we could go down to, but I don't know, it just occurred to me that the value for value model might be really good for you guys, especially if you're keeping up like a show a week, like you're saying. Like, that's, I know how much time that takes, and time is money, and you need, like, I always say, life is all about incentives. You need to be incentivized to keep doing what you're doing. You know what I mean? So I don't know, it's something to think about.
It kind of follows the model that we started with, is building community. If someone likes the community enough to be part of it and support it, then they can. If they just want to listen to, hey, I'm just hitting the listen button, just, on some level, is supporting the show. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome in and of itself.
Yeah, like, well, you already have Patreon as a platform, which is kind of similar, but it's a middleman. You know what I mean? It's its own platform, and it can do certain things. This is just straight to the consumer. This is straight to the people who actually listen to you. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I like it.
My
favorite thing about it, I guess.
My favorite thing about your podcast, Patrick, is
a little closer.
My favorite thing about your podcast, Patrick, is how you keep it real, and you're not going to advertise. So the marketing, making money off of marketing, is like such a buzzkill for me to listen to a podcast that has commercials in it. So thank you for that. That's
I cannot I cannot stand, like, especially mid-roll ads. Mid-roll ads it's in a video or a podcast, it pisses me off. I hate it. I hate a mid-roll ad. So yeah, anything you can do to get away from ads, like, and this is another thing that Adam Curry always talks about, ads equal censorship, right? Like, you're either being overtly censored, or you're self-censoring because you know that you might say something that the sponsor doesn't like you to say, or whatever. You know what I mean? So it really is censorship. If you want to have a real relationship with an audience, you need to be able to say whatever you need to be able to say. You know what I mean?
And it breaks their attention span too. Whenever there's personally, I'll be like, wow, I'm watching this video, and then it's like, have you thought about this shaving cream or whatever? I'm like,
exactly.
Learning about rigging wood.
Well, and it's worse when you're doing something so you can't access your phone, or at least for me, if I'm moving around a tree or riding my bike, and all of a sudden this ad comes on and I'm stuck. I can't get to my phone to change it, and I'm listening to something I don't want,
And it's always a little louder than what you were.
I know.
To.
Oh God.
All of a sudden someone's yelling in your ear.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad that you are somewhat incentivized to use YouTube, because personally I'm more like, I like the visuals to go along with the audio.
Yeah.
And I was just telling them earlier, sometimes if I'm trying to learn something that I'm watching a video about, it's nice to have the option to pause and rewind if,
Didn't quite.
Didn't quite
definitely.
catch it,
Yeah,
you know?
especially something educational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I learn best in person in the situation. Like, you know, someone shows me and then they're like, now you try. And, you know, most people, I think that works really well for them. But I think in terms of, you know, an online, never having met somebody, to be able to learn that much, I think the video, you know, having a visual,
definitely
really powerful. So
yeah, it was a certain point in 2018, just after I had passed 1,000 subscribers, and YouTube sent me an email about monetizing, and I was like this close to making a video that was called like why I will never monetize my YouTube channel. And then I had a big discussion with my friend Will, and I changed my mind, and I'm so glad that I did, because it honestly, it really does incentivize me to make YouTube videos. Like I've been taking it easy this year. I haven't done nearly as much because I was working on other things like the book and stuff, but it really does, it, whether it's subconscious or whatever, the fact that I get a little bit of money from it, like, because this, I mean, like you were saying, how long it takes to edit stuff, like this takes time directly away from my family and or anything else that I can be doing. Like video editing is very intense. You have to sit there and you have to be focused and in the zone. You can't just, you know, do a little bit here and do a little bit there. It doesn't work that way for me anyway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
We're kind of lucky because there's a few of us that we spread it out. So I'll do a lot of the audio editing for the podcast, and Jamie will take care of a lot of the videos. So we can kind of spread it out over a few people.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how you do it all yourself.
Well, it shows all the hard work you put into it.
Yeah.
The production's awesome. Everything's clean and concise. I personally haven't seen any of the YouTube stuff, but I've been following the pod since day one, and your website's awesome as well. It's a great resource. It's like the first thing, you and climbingarborist.com, for somebody new in the game, like check this out as your baseline, and it keeps them busy for years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Dan started his long before I did. And so it was good to talk to him on the podcast as well. And we had a really good conversation. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's a ton of work.
Yeah.
And you know, you can only, the way I think about it is, you can only work really hard at something for so long for free before you start to question it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like 43 episodes weekly is bonkers. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But at some point, if it was me, I'd be thinking, I'm still not, you know, if you're still not seeing something like community is amazing, and that's why I'm saying value for value.
Totally.
So
we have a link on each episode where you can donate to buy us a beer.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's our value for value.
Yeah, that was for value. You want to buy the cruise some beer? Here's a link. You know, it's one of those things. That being said, I got about 1,000 questions about editing and YouTube and stuff, but I don't know if that's what everybody wants to hear. That's more just my own curiosity. So while we're talking about, you know, sending someone somewhere to go for, you know, when they're first getting in the game, I know you've worked on apprentice programs before. Kind of what I've seen through the social medias is with Apprentice James. Do you have any thoughts on apprenticeships you want to share? Do you have Apprentice right now?
I don't have a formal apprentice right now. I have two younger guys. One is an actual climber. He's been climbing for 2 years now. And then one guy who just started with me a few weeks ago. Neither one of them is technically signed up for the apprenticeship program. It's through the government here.
Yeah.
So I'm really lucky that I live in a place that recognizes formally arboriculture, arborist, as a trade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we have like where I live, to be a certified arborist, to call yourself that, you can either go down the ISA route, which is available everywhere, or you can do the provincial certification, which is infinitely harder to get. It's really ironic that a lot of people think that the ISA here is worth more than the Ontario. It's not even close. Like,
wow.
To get the Ontario, you have to do 2 terms of school, which is 12 weeks each. And then you have to do a combined 5,600 hours on the job training. And then after all of that, you have to get a big signature book from your employer, and everything filled out, each individual skill filled out and signed and dated. And then after you get all that, you have to write a final exam, and then you're considered a certified arborist by the province of Ontario.
Wow.
You have to, what was the last part about the final exam?
Once you have all the requirements, then you apply to write the exam, and then you go and write this exam. You know with the ISA, like the ISA sells you the book that you have to study.
Yeah.
You know, it's like $100 book, and they're selling it to you to take their test. You know what I mean? The Ontario test, there's no book. You know what I mean? You just like, you have to hope that you took notes when you're in school, and hope that you know what you're talking about. And so it's way harder to get. Plus, you have to actually climb in those 2 terms of school. You have to climb and do actual tree work. You can't be, a behind the desk arborist like half the people who have ISA. You know what I mean?
So what do you mean when you say write the exam? That might be.
Oh, they have this big multiple choice exam.
Okay, so it is multiple choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we in America we say take the exam.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Like a 5-paragraph essay.
You're
Wow.
like,
And how does that benefit someone to take that route versus the ISA certified arborist? ISA certified arborist. Obviously, they're getting a lot more education going that route. But is it like private companies are going to look to bring you on for higher pay for that reason, or is it government jobs or what?
Well, myself, as someone who's gone through it, I would certainly be more inclined to hire someone who has gone through that as opposed to any rant, because anyone can get the ISA. Like the ISA doesn't impress me at all. It really doesn't.
I noticed on your signature, you're formally ISA certified.
Formally, yeah. Well, I let mine lapse this year in April. I let it lapse because like I got it in what year was it? 2011 is when I got my ISA, which is the first year that I started my business. And I remember, see, in the States, I know from talking to people, there are so many events. It's so common, or was, that you could just go to all these events and get all these free CEUs. So when your 3 years comes up, you have all this crap load of CEUs. And for me, I didn't have any because I don't go to things, I don't travel. And the only way for me to get CEUs was to do these stupid, you have to, again, buy books from the ISA, and then you have to fill out the thing at the end of each article and send them all away. And it took me forever the first time to recertify at the end of my 3 years. And I remember thinking then, like, man, I'm not gonna do this in 3 years. There's no way.
Yeah.
And then it came up again, and I did it again for whatever reason. But this time it came up, and then it got extended because of COVID. And I just said, screw it. I'm not gonna do this. I can't continue supporting this organization that I have so many problems with, and I'm not going to give them my money anymore. And honestly, I haven't noticed a single negative effect for me in my business. Granted that I live in a place, as I say, that has this parallel certification. You know what I mean? So I'm still a certified arborist without the ISA, right? So.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about the ISA. I really appreciate what they've done for the industry because there's been a real effect. I've watched them in our area kind of hold people accountable through through promoting the certified arborist. When I first started, and I'm very lucky. The company that I first started for was a family company, and I started in '98, and at that time, I wasn't certified at that time, but when I first started, our company had, I think, 3 certified arborists, and there was 5 in all of Lane County. So I watched my family's company kind of leverage, hey, we're the certified arborists, in a way that could help grow their business over time and really establish a level of industry standard. But I've also watched that test get easier and easier, and more people take it over the years.
More checks.
Yeah. And
people get certified.
Yeah, you see it become this money-making thing. And I mean, That's how the world works. If you provide a service, you got to make money. That's just how these things work. But at a certain point, it just gets so frustrating because it becomes about the money instead of about bettering the industry. And that's frustrating. Yeah, it's all we got. It's all we got. And
from Logger Joe coming in and
Yeah.
totally. I mean, I fully agree. And that's why it's a love-hate. But and I love going to the conferences and the competitions. I mean, this is like I've learned more about arboriculture through them, but I also see how it's like there's got to be a better way. You know?
It's the paywall. It does kind of start to feel like a racket at a certain point.
Yeah,
definitely.
I wrote an article. I don't think I even published it. I wrote it like the first year that I started Educated Climber, called "The ISA is a Racket." But I like it's a very polarizing, divisive issue because, as you say, like it is the only game in town. Yeah. They only invented the certification in 1992. I don't know who came up with it, but it was a genius move. It's a cash cow for them. Like once you get initially certified, like you're sending them money for the rest of your career. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me personally, the real problem that I have with it, as I see it in my brain, is that it created this parallel stream of arborists. Like there's people who actually work with trees, actually cut trees and climb and trim. But then there's also this other one. This is like the academic, like they work for cities, they have desk jobs. There's thousands of these people who are certified arborists, and on paper, especially if they've taken other things like other things that the ISA offers, they're way more qualified than I am. I actually work with trees and they don't. You know what I mean? That in my brain, that's the big issue that I have with it, aside from the money issues. I really don't like that it created two classes of people who both call themselves arborists, and in my mind they're not. I don't know what they are, but I don't see them as arborists. That's just me. That's my own.
It's really interesting. I work for the city of Eugene, so there's a lot of people that work in parks, and they're never pruning trees, but they knew by getting this extra certification it would make them look good, and they were able to convince everybody their park work was equivalent to
exactly. And so like I say, like they started it in 92 is when they came up with it. So when you're saying 98, like it was really new at that time.
Yeah.
Right? But it has been inflated and devalued massively since then, as far as I see it. Because again, anyone can get it, and they sell you the book to study from, and as you say, they've made it easier and easier to pass it. Like even when I started, that was back when the test was divided into sections, and you had to get a minimum grade in each section individually, right? And then in a few years, because I remember my boss Norm, he went and wrote it and he failed it, and I remember him complaining about this. And I think the year later, they just combined it all into one big thing, and said if you get a certain score, then you pass. Well, that instantly makes the whole thing way easier, because you can get 80% in one thing and 20% in another. As long as you average it out, you get your score. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I failed it a couple times because what I did every day, I was really good at, and I was a young kid that didn't take studying serious, but then there would be like all this soil pH stuff that I did not study enough. And so there was a few of the things that I just didn't do because I wasn't doing it in the field. And, I really had to work to get it, but I also didn't get it for a long time because of what you're saying. I saw people that would come and work with us just during the summer, and good guys, and they did their best, but they did not know how trees nearly as much as I did. And they worked a couple months a year, but he was a teacher at a school, so he knew how to take a test more than my dyslexic ass did. And so he just crushed that thing. And I was like, the fact that I got this like first try and I couldn't, like, yes, I should have studied the stuff more, but it was crazy to me,
Yeah, there's tons of ISA certified people who don't know anything about tree work. And there's tons of people with no certification who are badass. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I like some of the TCI certifications. I
do too, actually.
I've done the aerial rescue and the EHAP, and I can't remember. Did we do any other ones while we were?
I'm not sure, but all the tests I've seen from them would be great for like if you're in the States anyway, if you're hiring someone new and you're like, these are kind of the steps you're going to go through.
Yeah.
They have like a
Mhm.
chipper test that you take, you know how to operate a chipper. They have a ground operations test, So
Yeah.
that's where I see those would be super beneficial.
Well, and like, how important is that? You're
Oh,
asking
yeah.
new people to work on this machine that will literally eat you up and spit you out if you don't do it right. And, you got to get, and we're just coming across the chipper test,
Yeah.
That's probably a part of the reason why it starts with chainsaw maintenance in the apprenticeship program.
Yeah,
where
totally.
that is, it's
Yeah.
kind of important.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very important.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
how do you go about selecting an apprentice?
That's a really good question.
Our need is urgent and our standards are low. And if you show up for work, you're hired.
Sounds like I'm your man.
No, I mean that's like how I would hire a ground guy. In terms of it, there's a certain mentality that goes with trusting someone to go up in the air and try to do production work, whether it's in a bucket or climbing or lift or whatever. For me, I'm looking like I would never sign up someone who seemed like they knew what they were, seemed like they thought that they already knew what they were doing. You know what I mean? Like my first apprentice, James, he was really grounded, really down to earth. If I would show him something, he wouldn't talk back. He wouldn't try to, like part of that was because he was so green, right? He had no prior training or experience, but it was just his attitude. And it's easy to recognize for me when someone has the ability to ask good questions. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, totally. It's so hard because you say it's because he's green, but there's so many people that are green, but are just willing to tell you how to do your job. When they've been on the job for 6 months, you're like, I understand that you think it's the right way, but like maybe I'm a few steps ahead here, and that's why I'm doing this. It always surprises me to find that person, like you say, that asks good questions is so rare, it seems.
Oh yeah, it's so difficult to find people. So when you find someone, you gotta treat them really well. And one thing that I like about the apprenticeship program is it kind of locks you, not really, but it feels like it's locking you into like a multi-year ordeal. You know what I mean? And it is transferable. So they could tell me to piss off and go work for someone else, and they could transfer their status as an apprentice. But it comes with this expectation that like at least 2 years, you're if I sign you up for this thing, you're probably going to work for me for at least 2 years, which is, to me, is beneficial on both sides. I don't see much value in someone trying to learn something as deep as tree work without an absolute minimum commitment of 2 years. I mean, it takes a lot longer than that, obviously, but the initial phase. And I'm sure you guys have heard of like the 2-year syndrome, which is after 2 years, you feel like you know everything.
Oh, yeah.
Most dangerous at that point.
It's very dangerous. It really is. It's a very real thing. I've seen it many times, honestly.
Yeah, I've heard that the most dangerous times to do tree work, what I heard is when you hit 5 years, and then when you hit 10 years, because those are the 2 times that you feel you've done it long enough, so you start thinking, like, hey, I'm good, I know what I'm doing, and then around 5 years, people usually get some kind of reminder that, hey, maybe I don't know everything. You get cocky, and then 10 years is another one. Like, I've been doing this for 10 years.
No one's watching you at 10 years either.
Yeah, exactly. And you start feeling like, oh, I've been doing it long enough to cut a little corner here or there. And that's another,
Complacent.
I remember hearing something similar. It was a little different. It wasn't tree work per se. I think it was referring mainly to just working with chainsaws in general. It was just similar, like 5 years. But I think the second one was like much later, like 20 years or something. Because that, like, if you go that long, like your complacency can really skyrocket. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
I've worked with guys who one hand everything, you know what I mean? Like every single cut with one hand, even when you don't need to, many of them you don't need to. And it's just like, if you ask them, they'd just be like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for X number of years. And it's like, yeah, but you are playing with fire. I mean, I make fun of it with, you know, an entire episode of my podcast, which is weird. And who does that? But it really is dangerous. You know what I mean? And so you do need to put it in context. It's just, it comes down to complacency. So
yeah, I absolutely love that episode though. One-handing is the devil. And I'll admit, I have and probably one hand when I more than I should at times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's part of grow. And I'm not making excuses. We're actually been talking about doing a show on it. But it's part of when you like when I first learned how to cut. One-handing a saw wasn't even a term where I was at. It's just they would teach you this is how you operate a chainsaw. It's quicker if you do it this way. But I really like the episode that you made. You know, there was points that, you know, like when you listen to a podcast, I wanted to add my 2 cents in, and, you know, I didn't agree with everything you said. The undertone of the whole episode, I really liked, because it seemed to me that the point you were trying to get across, and please correct me if I'm wrong, was that, hey, some people do it like this, other people do it like this. But if you shut down the conversation just by saying never do this, then there's not even a conversation to be had. There's no place for growth. There's no way to educate somebody. And that is such a powerful message on a subject like one-handing a saw, you know.
Oh, you guys cut out on me there, but yeah, the point of the episode in my head was just to put it more into context. Like I've seen over the years, you know, it's called like monomaniacal thinking, where you just have blinders on and you just focus everything on one thing. And it seemed like one-handing got put, you know, in the pedestal of like, this is what we should all be talking about, and this is what we should all be concerned about. And all I was trying to make the point was like swinging around on an unrated anchor point on a little nylon rope in a tree that could fail at any time with a running chainsaw is not a safe thing to do. You know what I mean? I'm not so sure that one-handing is the thing that we should all be so focused on. There are so many other things going on. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, one of your
that episodes
on safety third.
Yeah,
15 minutes long or something, but it really made the point about having safety, as people say, and the safety police that are out there that are like absolutely never one-hand a chainsaw. At that point, you're like, well, we're already taking these huge risks being in trees and working and trying to mitigate these hazards while we're doing it.
Yeah.
You might as well, if you go to sleep at night, maybe you should sleep in the basement. Maybe you should wear a helmet while you're sleeping.
I always wear a helmet.
Exactly.
It was hilarious. I loved it. And it was also very poignant. I loved it.
Yeah, it's something I struggle with. At the city, I work for a municipality, and I'm on the safety committee for public works at the city. I don't know why they put me there. Maybe it's because they felt I could use a little bit of that safety in my life.
There's a reason.
But it is so maddening at times, because you're talking, you know, and hey, we're all just doing our best with the information we have. They don't understand what it's like to be an arborist. But when you're talking to someone that works behind a desk all day long and they're trying to tell you how to do your job, it gets so maddening. And I understand that you gotta, you know, there's got to be lines, especially in a big organization. They've got to run it a certain way, but it is such a, you know, to go back to one-handing. I've had people get on my case about how I'm one-handing when I'm in a bucket and all the cutting's going on below the edge of the bucket, and I fully understand the physics of how the chain creates kickback and these things, and I'm in a safe situation. And this person's getting on my case, and they were almost, you know, they're almost never have their safety glasses on.
Exactly.
How many times safety glasses have saved my vision?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect example. Yeah,
it's just not the the hot topic that one-handing a saw is. And whenever someone gets on my case about one-handing the saw, I always tell them thank you, because it's coming out of a place of they're caring about me. You know, if I'm almost never getting it from somebody that's on an ego trip or something like that. That does exist, I'm sure. But, it's something like, hey, I don't want to see you get hurt, and it's always been like someone talking to me, not calling me out in front of the whole crew, but afterwards, just be like, hey, that seemed a little, so.
For sure.
I appreciate when someone comes and talks to me out of respect and out of care for my well-being. But
for sure, there's also for me the issue of like the biggest reason that I could never work for someone else or a bigger organization, like why I consider myself to be unemployable, is because I can't stand the idea of a desk jockey making rules for me in a tree, like what gear I can use, what knots I can use. Okay, so we were talking about where I live in Ontario. There's a list of climbing hitches published by the province of Ontario that those are the only ones that I'm allowed to use, right? Like it's a running joke among people who do tree work here, like, yeah, whatever about your list of climbing hitches, but it's just stuff made up. It's like the rule that came out 2 years ago in the UK about 2 ropes. Like every single tree, every climb, every situation, doesn't matter, 2 ropes. Like that's insane to me. Like I use 2 ropes a lot, but yeah. I use it when it makes sense. You know what I mean? I use it when it helps me. I'm not going to use it because it's a rule. That's crazy to me.
Exactly.
And also in certain situations, it gets in the way and makes everything less safe, I think, because it just like these ropes and totally.
Like I'm young enough that I can remember right when I started climbing. And if you had told me at that time that I had to learn how to climb with 2 ropes, going from 0 climbing experience straight to 2 ropes, I'd be like, you're insane. How am I going to learn that as a beginner?
Yeah.
Like, I can't even wrap my head around what it would take to start with that as your starting point. You know what I mean? 2 ropes at all times. That's crazy.
Notching is an advanced technique. I mean, what do you do?
Wild. Nate was just doing it today.
He was, yeah.
2 tie-ins on a skip.
Well, Jamie set something up as like a safety line, and I was like, hey, can you actually pass that over here? That looks a lot better.
Oh yeah, again, I use 2 ropes all the time, but I don't do it because it's a rule or a government mandate. You know what I mean? I do it because it makes sense, right? If it doesn't make sense, I don't. You know what I mean?
Well, and going back to the safety third episode, once you're doing it just because someone's telling you, not because you've figured out how it makes sense, it defeats the whole point of that safety committee, because you're not actually sharing safety, you're just sharing rules. Like the safety comes from the understanding, in my mind,
Yes, it's the why and not the how, right? It's why is this a rule?
Yeah, that's funny, because I had to do a presentation for the safety committee, and so I chose safety glasses because I'm a big fan of safety glasses myself, and I made the whole presentation about the hows, the whats, and the whys. And I started the whole thing off of, too often people just hand safety glasses over and say the rule is you got to wear them, so here they are. And those are the people that don't wear them. The people that wear them are the ones that have had some kind of experience or understand what happens if something hits your eyeball and destroys that eyeball. If you've had a close call with safety glasses, then you will wear safety glasses.
You're probably the most diverse member on that safety team.
Yeah.
That's why they keep you on the safety.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's something else.
Everyone else is like, watch out for those staplers, man.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, that's why I said earlier, everybody on there, has a different definition of safety.
Yeah.
Because they have a different worldview. It's one of those things that in general in life right now, people are having trouble kind of looking at someone else's perspective and understanding someone else's view. A lot.
Yep.
If I'm somebody that has just sat at a desk and all I've seen about tree work is what I've gotten in the media, then I don't really understand. But if I've been tasked with the job of making it safe, I'm going to do my best, and I'm probably going to really miss, and I'm going to be trying to shove some rules that don't make sense down someone's throat. And so that's why I do my best to embrace it, even if it drives me crazy sometimes, because this is my opportunity to help share my perspective and hopefully in a little way make it a little bit easier for the guys out in the field, you know.
Definitely. My first year climbing, I was learning from the boss's son, Norm's son. His name is Nate as well. And he's phenomenal, by far the best climber I've ever seen to this day. But that first year, he didn't wear safety glasses ever. And because he didn't, I just watched him. No, I just watched him and I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to do that either then. So I worked my entire first year without using safety glasses. And I remember, like, I'm one of those people who, if I get something in my eye, like everything stops. I can't do anything if something's in my eye. I have to stop and get that out of my eye. And that it happened countless times, like pole sawing over your head and everything is just retarded. But again, like I knew it was a rule, obviously. Everyone else had safety glasses, but Nate didn't wear them. And I don't know. Thinking back on it, that's so stupid, but that's what I did.
Yeah.
What's interesting too is that when you, it's like you're the first person that you're learning something from, it really sticks with you until
it does because when you don't know anything and you see someone who appears to you as if they know what they're doing, you think, oh, well, that's how you do this.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And like I learned everything watching Norm and Nate, and I thought I know how to do tree work because I learned from Norm and Nate. And then years later, I realized like what I actually learned is just what Norm and Nate knew about tree work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why like it's so important that you move around and you do work with other people, because you don't want to get stuck just knowing what the person before you knew, because that's all you're going to learn from them. Yeah. Unless they're really progressive and they're really trying to move forward in their knowledge. You know, I mean, most people aren't, in my opinion, that I've worked with anyway. Most people, as August likes to say, like most people, if they tell you that they've been doing tree work for 20 years, it's really just 1 year repeated 20 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
Far out.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's I could not agree with that more. I was having a conversation a little bit ago with the supervisor in urban forestry, who's a cool guy, you know, came up in the field and whatnot and understands. I'm so lucky. The reason I'm still at the city is because I have him as the supervisor, kind of shielding us as someone that understands what it means to be a field worker.
Yeah.
And my first, you know, like I said, I worked for a family business and I worked there for 18 years before I headed over to the city. And I didn't realize it at the time, but we were kind of in our own sounding chamber, you know, because and luckily it was a really progressive company that was sending us to ISA trainings and, you know, supporting certifications and all these type of things. So it was a good sounding chamber to be in, but still it's so easy for you to think that like, hey, this is how it's done. This is what we know. We're so awesome. And then moving to the city, I started seeing the exact same kind of thing at the city where everybody felt like, hey, we're the best, and we're the elite. And it was like, oh, I see what's going on here. We all just got egos, you know, it's part of being a tree guy. There's no way for, if you know, half the time you come out of the tree, the client comes down and is like, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You know, that will get into your head. And it's so important to squash that ego down.
My buddy Will has always said tree work is full of egos and assholes.
Yeah.
It's so true.
It's so true. But I think that's where, you know, stuff like your Educated Arborist brand, you know, or what Hunnicky or what all these guys are doing online and sharing their knowledge, it gives a way that people, you know, never had before to kind of get out of that sounding chamber just with a few clicks and start listening to somebody else and you know.
Yeah.
For example, one of my favorite tricks that I learned from you was the daisy chain when tying off chunks of wood.
Oh, that's
Oh,
a-
nice.
That
Nice.
daisy chain knot, dude, I loved it. I always
Yeah.
just
Oh, yeah.
run and bowl in, with the Yosemite tie off and just,
Yeah.
do that every time. And then I saw that daisy chain and I've loved it ever since. And, I mean, heck, you can do whatever you want with the run and bowling and but just by, watching this video of, some guy in Canada that was showing a different way to do it, it
Yeah.
expanded my mind and it gave me another option.
Yeah.
And in other applications now, because it's getting that information is getting out of that sounding bubble.
Absolutely. Like a lot of people make fun of social media, and it's warranted in most situations probably. But I know for myself personally, like on Instagram, for instance, over the years, just watching little clips from professionals all over the world, I have learned so much from just following people on Instagram.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how many little things that I've learned. Like I did a crane job last year. It was my first crane job in I think 4 or 5 years. And every single one of those cuts that I used in that crane job was just from watching guys on little clips on Instagram and YouTube.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's probably, I don't recommend that. Like, you should obviously get actual training.
Yeah.
But I mean, before that, all I had ever seen was like flat cut, or I would actually years ago, I would use a lot of snap cuts. Like I would do a snap cut and then I would get out of there and then I would let them, lift it up or whatever. But seeing like shelf cuts and different things, I had never seen any of that. And so like you can make fun of social media for a lot of reasons, but I learn a ton on there. I love seeing what other people post, whether half the time it's not even posted for the purpose of being educational. I don't think it's just, they're just sharing something.
Yeah.
Or like someone will share a post which is about something, but I'll see something else in the post and that's what I'll learn. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's unintentional a lot of times. And I love that. It's a lot of serendipitous learnings going on there. I love that about it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is a Bruce Lee quote. And he said, use what works, discard what doesn't, and add what is uniquely your own. And that,
I love that.
Just sums up for me, like with those little social media, you can use so much and discard whatever doesn't work, add, alter it in however it works for you. But we've never been at a time where you can do that more.
Absolutely.
I want to be respectful of your time. I just noticed we've been on for about an hour and 16 minutes. And I know that you live in a whole different time zone than here. So
I do. I'm on the East Coast here. I'm on the New York time zone. So we're 3 hours ahead of you guys.
Oh man.
So it's almost 10 o'clock at night here.
What a crazy Friday night you're having.
Yeah.
What's with the storm that's going on right now?
I don't know. I think it's been raining for over 24 hours here. It sounds to me, I have the window open. It sounds to me like it's tapering off. So hopefully.
I had one more thing I wanted to ask you
Yeah.
about if you got time.
Yeah, for sure.
You just recently must have worked very hard to get Jerry Baranik's book back in print and out. So I kind of want to ask you about that, promote it a little bit, and like what went into that.
Oh my God. So his book, The Fundamentals. So when I started, again, I started my apprenticeship in 2008 at Norms, and like I bought the only 2 books that you could, like I say, and The Fundamentals was one of the 2. And I remember like when they started at school there during the 12-week course, they would have a member of the Cheryl Tree team or whatever. He would come by and give everyone a catalog, and they would take orders because all of us, we all wanted gear, right? We're all gear hungry. And I didn't know really what to order from them. I ordered a rope and I ordered the Fundamentals. And I remember when the order came in, because it came to the school, right? So we all opened everything together. And I remember everyone seeing me opening a book, and they're all like, "Who orders a book?" They were getting everything else, right? And I was like, "This guy, I want this book. This is what I want. I'm here for the knowledge." You know what I mean? And so yeah, it was a huge, like, looking back after going, because I went at least 10 years without rereading it, like in full, really pouring back through it. And looking back through it, I realized just how many little things I picked up, how many concepts and just mindsets and worldviews that I picked up from this book. And his book went out of print in 2016, and I was like devastated. I was looking for a copy for someone else, and that's how I found out that it was out of print. That's the only reason. And I couldn't believe it, because it's a classic. And so I contacted him through a forum called the Treehouse Master Blaster, and that's the only social media that, as far as I know, that Jerry does. He's still on there. So I contacted him, and he had been shopping the idea, like maybe someone could buy the rights for the book directly and go through all the work to update it, because parts of it are outdated. They are. And I said, squash that. Like, the original, regardless of an update, the original should always exist. You know what I mean? Whether it's 50 years in the future, you should go back. You should be able to go back and get a copy of this original book. You know what I mean? And so I tried a bunch of things. This is in 2017. I tried a bunch of options for doing a physical reprint, and I couldn't. It was too big of a thing for me to undertake. I knew it wasn't going to happen. So I compromised with Jerry, and we put it out as an ebook, as a PDF download on the website for $20. So that sold really well, and I was very glad to be able to get that back into the hands of people who wanted it. And so I just kind of put it on the back burner, this idea of what I really wanted was to bring it back in paperback, right? And then and then last year, I was talking to a friend who is a pastor, and he showed me, he has this side business of publishing old books that are out of print. And I was like, tell me everything.
Yeah.
So he gave me a basic rundown, and I started researching it, and I was like, wow, this could totally work. And I'm immediately I thought, like, oh yeah, this will be ready in like 2 months, guaranteed. It took like 18 months to put it together. It was a ton of work. I had to take the original scan, which we had been selling, and redo it, because it couldn't be a scan. It had to be actual text. So to turn a scan into actual text, it's called OCR, optical character recognition. So you have to run it through software. It makes a lot of errors. And my immediate thought was like, oh, this is the worst. Like, I have to go through a 540-page book looking for errors. Wow. But it turned out to be a real blessing in disguise, because what I came to realize is that the original was full of errors, right? So it was really ironic, because I was being really perfectionist about it. But then when I made that realization, I was like, well, I'm just going to do my best. And I know that there's going to be errors even in what I put out, but it's going to be way better in terms of errors than the original. I also made a few edits and updates. I changed a few things. I worked with a bunch of people on Instagram who are following that process. I was sending them chapters. They would read through and send it back to me. So they found I remember saying to my wife, the first 3 chapters I went through, and I was like, okay, I got everything. And then I sent it to like 15 people, and every single one of them sent back stuff that I had missed, which was bonkers to me. And so it was a huge undertaking. I also had to redo all of the image scanning, and I'm really happy with the end result. Because of shipping restrictions or whatever during COVID, I wasn't able to get like proof copies directly to me shipped in Canada. So I would have to do whatever I could on PDF. And then once I thought that it was pretty decent, I would have to send it to Jerry in California, like ship it directly to him from the factory, and then he would have to ship it to me. So it took forever, and but I'm really happy with the end result, and it's sold. It's almost 2,000 copies now,
Awesome.
just since the end of August, and it's a classic. I mean, it is literally the Bible of tree work. I call it that for a reason. It's actually, I have a copy here.
Nice.
Like, this is a thick book. Like, it's intimidatingly big. You know what I mean? And again, like I say, like, how many tree people actually even read books anymore? But to me, it's an absolute classic. It's got to be on your shelf. I still refer back to it. You know, there's so many things. I was watching one of Jake Rogers' newest videos. He had a video about square grinding chain, and with his friend Jed, and they were talking about the fundamentals. And I grabbed my copy, and I was looking back about square grind chain, and like, it's timeless stuff. There are elements of it that are outdated in this day and age. There are elements that need to be updated, but the core of the book, especially the second half of the book, which is all felling, like, that stuff is absolutely timeless.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is a genius of teaching and filming himself. He got all of these photographs in this book himself on a camera, on a tripod. He would set it up and aim it, you know, like 100 feet up in the tree where he knew he was going to be, and then he would bring up a remote control with him. You know what I mean? And he would be like with the saw. Wow. And you'd somehow like click the remote. It was crazy how he did this, how he put this together. It's just amazing. I love Jerry, and then I'm very proud of this book.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend it. If you're into tree work, like, it is the Bible. You need the fundamentals.
Yeah.
You really do. You got to focus on the fundamentals.
Well, and I think there's a lot of value in understanding where the industry came from. So even if the techniques aren't exactly what we're using today, through understanding how it was done before will help you understand how it's done today, because you'll see the evolution of it. And through, you know, me and Becca were talking about, when you're training somebody, a lot of times when you first have a mentor or first have someone you're training, they'll ask you why, and you'll all of a sudden realize, well, that's just how I've always done it. You know, but if you get that understanding of where it came and how it got there, you might actually be able to walk them through, this is why we do it, you know, and that's such a powerful tool when teaching.
I couldn't agree more. And that comes back to the why versus the how.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, on the one hand, like, a lot of the stuff is outdated. Like, but on the other hand, he's showing SRT rope walking in the early 90s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is way ahead of it ever being adopted in arboriculture. Like, SRT rope walking was a very much brand new. Well, SRT work positioning was very much brand new even when I got into the trade in 2008.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the rope wrench hadn't even been invented.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's parts of it are outdated, but not really. I mean, you got to know your fundamentals. You know, like, shiny new fancy gear is awesome, but if you don't know your fundamentals, like, what are you doing? You know what I mean?
That's a good thing too about fundamentals, is that they don't really age. They age really well. You know, they don't
Exactly.
out of style.
Exactly.
They don't really get outdated, because that's kind of like the basis of everything.
Exactly. It's first principles. You know what I mean? This is how I see the book. It's the first principles level upon which everything else gets built over time.
Yeah.
And Jerry Baranek is one of the absolute grandfathers of modern arboriculture, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Cool.
Every now and then I'll climb on a Blake's hitch, and I'll just do my best to crush a tree on a Blake's hitch.
Yeah.
Someone that's, you know, newer, because my goal is to show that, hey, you can do it in all these different ways. Like, you don't have to be trapped in this is how we do it box. You can do it like we used to do it 20 years ago and still be 100% production mode. You know,
absolutely.
Now, you know, there's definitely the other thing that happens is I teach myself, oh yeah, this is why I don't do this anymore. You know? It's not something you want to do every day, but it's good for people to have that perspective, you know, of like, there's a lot of ways to skin this cat, you know.
That tree climbing comp we did up in Seattle for the Pacific Northwest chapter.
Yeah.
Like 5 years ago, was it, or something? The dude that won everything did everything on a Blake's hitch.
Nice.
Yeah.
And he just schooled all of us, like, just because
he
had that foundation.
That's awesome.
The most ironic things is that you you republished this Bible with help from a pastor.
Oh yeah.
I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, you're right. That is very ironic. I love it.
All right. Well, a lot of times we'll wrap up these episodes with final thoughts. Jamie, what are your final thoughts?
I just want to say thanks for putting out that book, getting that back out. I've paged through that book, but I got a lot from Jerry Baranek from the Working Climber series when I first started. And then after that, I found your videos, Dan Holliday's, and I'm stoked on people who take the time. Like you took a lot of your personal time to teach other people, and I just thank you, Patrick.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, kind of an echo of Jamie here. I have learned a lot from watching your videos, and I'm glad that you have, like I said, that medium. It's accessible to people. Books. A lot of people anymore have a hard time sitting down and focusing and reading, and some folks don't learn very well that way. So it's great to have somebody that's willing to, again, put in that time and effort and have the expertise and willingness to teach people that you do have. So thank you. And it was
thank you.
Great talking with you.
Yeah, it was great talking with you, Andrew, Jamie, Becca, and Nate, and I had a lot of fun. So I'm glad that we did this.
Yeah.
Nate, what are your final thoughts?
Oh, I'd like to say thank you as well for keeping it real.
Yeah.
while producing quality. And we'll do our best down here in the States to try to, we don't need the ISA. We're going to strive to get some kind of standard going down here. And I think that kind of feed off of what your province has established is a great guide. I looked up the apprenticeship. It's like 65 pages long. Like, holy smokes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's broken down like massively. It's like one skill is like, does this person wear their safety glasses? And the boss has to put a signature and a date. You know what I mean? It's crazy. So it's very detailed. But it's just a good record of like what the current training standard is. And you can look it up. I have it on my website. Anyone can go and from anywhere and get the Ontario training standard. But I'm very much a fan of apprenticeship and just teaching people, what we do, but more importantly, why and how to do it efficiently and safely. So
awesome.
Right on. Do you have any other final thoughts you want to share with us?
No, I just wanted to encourage you guys to keep going with the podcast, and congratulations on 43 episodes weekly. That's crazy. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, man.
Yeah.
I think, a lot of my final thoughts are the same as these guys. Just thank you so much for everything you've done. It's really been cool to watch the industry grow through the internet and through YouTube videos where people all over the world have access to, proper work techniques and have an ability to kind of change the game and up their own personal game. And so with that, I'll say, stay safe and ask good questions.
Right on.
Nice talking to you, Patrick.
Yep. Later.
See ya.